The deal. I mean, I may not do the deal or I may do the deal. TikTok is worthless. Worthless if I don't approve it. It has to close. I learned that from the people that own it. If I don't do the deal, it's worthless. Worth nothing. If I do the deal, it's worth maybe $1 trillion. $1 trillion.
TikTok has seen millions of dances in recent years, but it has seen nothing like the last few days. Banned, offline, back online, front and center at the inauguration, and now potentially worthless, in the words of President Trump at his first official day back in office. Well, in the name of short-form video, Andrew Graham is the head of business development at CAA, and I'm going to give him 90 seconds or less to tell us what happens in the next 75 days. You're on the clock because we need to make a TikTok about what's going to happen. Go.
It's been a heck of a lot of whiplash here recently. Listen, I think it's important to realize the next steps really are not in our hands. It's really in the Chinese government's hands. There's really only two paths here. One, a sale of TikTok, a divestiture that follows the law that has been passed, or a complete reversal of the law. On the reversal front, it seems to be highly unlikely. Even within Trump's own party, Senators Tom Cotton, Pete Ricketts, they oppose an extension. And then as it relates to a sale, we're not aware of any sale actually underway. And if you take a step back further, any sale has to be approved by the Chinese Communist Party. They have export laws. So if China doesn't approve it, really, there's no path forward. Our advice to our clients at this point has been to keep calm, carry on, continue to produce content from multiple platforms, syndicate that content as many places as possible to de-risk themselves.
You got it. 1 minute. That even works for a YouTube short. So you really burned through that answer. You got it all in there.
Hey, I'm a pro. I practice what I preach. Yeah.
You do indeed. So let's touch on a couple of those things and unpack it. First, the sale. I know of two bids. There's the People's bid led by Frank McCord, we had here recently, as well as Kevin O'Leary, and now Mr. Beast, who many people don't know might be the most powerful YouTuber on the planet, 300 plus million subscribers there. Is there any chance of the Chinese government selling this with or without the algorithm in your estimation?
I certainly think it's a less dangerous gamble if you separate the algorithm. This is the most powerful engine in social media, or at least it's been touted as such. So if you get a situation where the algorithm's pulled away, you get the likeness of the platform in the States, you get the user base, that seems more palatable. Now listen, I'm not a part of the Chinese government, so this is just conjecture, but I think that's probably the most palatable path forward. TikTok, at least in the United States, did, I think, around $22 billion in revenue last year. ByteDance as a whole did $120 billion. So really, it's kind of a drop in the bucket for them if this is really a game of geopolitical chess. It's not really about the dollars and cents or the yen.
Even on the high-end valuations, Dan Ives, who covers this entire space, puts the value northward of $100 billion at its ceiling. Let's step back a little bit about how we got here. Trump set this all in motion by suggesting a ban. It was then a bipartisan majority of Congress that agreed it was a national security threat. That was backed up by the Supreme Court. Have you ever bought that national security argument?
Listen, I mean, I have not, and our clients have not stumbled upon evidence of this, but to have really a foreign adversary control one of the most popular products among American youth does seem to be dangerous, right? But ultimately, we leave this to the minds of Washington and not us lowly folks in Hollywood.
Yeah, and ultimately it probably falls in the hands of Apple and Oracle, who will house this app and could be subject to massive fines if and when we find some closure here. So Instagram, meanwhile, is launching edits. That's a rival to CapCut. They're also reportedly offering bonuses between $10,000 and $50,000 to some of TikTok's top creators to come over. That's according to the information. Have you seen some of that? Will that approach work for Instagram to pull people over?
Yes, Zuck's team has been very busy over the weekend. There's no doubt about it. I believe that really the incentives are set up such that it's going to reinforce folks that are already on these platforms, rather than porting people over from TikTok. Generally speaking, they're targeting folks that are in Gen Alpha and Gen Z, so youth figures.
Interesting. Okay, so if TikTok is banned, in your estimation, which platform will be the biggest beneficiary?
I think it's going to be Meta by far and away, Instagram Reels. Bernstein, an advisory group, did a really interesting study. Americans consume something like 3.3 trillion minutes of TikTok in the last year. So, assuming that 100% of those minutes watched are retained, U.S. social platforms are going to be tremendous beneficiaries. And I believe they estimated something like 55 to 60% of that audience is going to go over to Facebook, right? And if you translate those minutes watched to earnings, Facebook's going to see something like a $10 billion, $13 billion jump in revenue just overnight.
Interesting to see those two CEOs in close confines with the president on Monday. So what do you encourage your clients to do that are making such a tremendous living on TikTok? We've had business operators on here that say they can't do anything close to the numbers on any other platform that they do on TikTok. And why is that?
Sure. Well, listen, your garden variety talent, right, influencer, makes at least 60% of their revenue from endorsement work. And most of that endorsement work, I'd say at least half of it, happens on TikTok, and the other half somewhere between Instagram and an amalgamation of a few others. Places like YouTube are not a home to transactional awareness marketers. When I say awareness marketing, I'm talking about places like Coca-Cola, Nissan, Fortune 500 companies. YouTube, since the pandemic, has become a repository for direct response brands, Wix, Dollar Shave Club. Those budgets are far more anemic for creators, at least until there's a transactional history. So a lot of the dollars, right, and the highest end of the threshold of the dollars are in TikTok and in Instagram. So if TikTok disappears overnight, we don't expect those ad dollars to disappear. Advertisers still need to deploy capital and impressions. We just think that's going to shift increasingly toward Instagram. And we're working in collaboration with these partners in the new deals that we strike to contemplate sort of optionality depending on what happens over the next 3 to 6 months.
And the other app that's popped up and risen to the top of the App Store is Red Note. Do you believe that will be banned? Will you encourage your creators to stay off of that app?
Yeah, our guidance is to not touch it. It seems like a really deleterious thing to go and pursue an app that's named after Chairman Mao's quotes, right? Especially given the climate that we're in right now. So if it gets enough traction, yeah, I definitely think it will be banned.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people know where that name came from. It's nice that some people certainly do. All right, just final question, 90 days from now, best guess, is TikTok operating in the United States?
I think it still is, yes.
And then permanently allowed to stay?
Well, I certainly hope. Listen, if Apple and Google are not able to push updates to this app, it's going to get glitchy. I don't think the whole thing's going to capitulate in the next 3 months. Yeah. But my best guess, and this is totally conjecture, is that we will get approval from the Chinese government to sell the likeness and user base, not ultimately the algorithm. At least that's my hope. I'm a free market capitalist. Most of us are here. We want to see competition in the
All right, love to have you back in 75 days and see where this goes between now and then. He's Andrew Graham, Head of Business Development at CAA. Really enjoyed it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for the time.